All right, Sandra, it looks like we've got a number of people in. If you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Let's give it maybe one more, I don't know, like a quick couple seconds just to kind of let everybody get in. As everyone's connecting, you guys will be muted. And as questions come up, we'll ask you guys to put it in the chat and we'll address them accordingly for everybody. Just give it a couple more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll just get started now.
All right.
All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank everybody for your time for meeting with us today. My name's Sandra Lucien, and I'm with Network One Consulting, and I'm a client manager here. And I'm a client manager for all of the law firm clients that we have. And here at Network One, we're a local IT managed service provider, and we provide IT for many different businesses here in the local Atlanta area. So I've been here for a little over a year, and I received a lot of questions about document management systems, billing, and kind of overall efficiency for running different firms across the city. And so in an effort to help answer some of these questions, I thought it'd be a good idea to collaborate with Affinity Consulting to help answer some of these questions, since they're definitely better versed than I am. So Network One and Affinity Consulting, we've had a great business partnership and relationship for over 20 years. And we're also business partners in AALA since 2011 as well. And really happy for all of those firms that are here today as well. Really quick, Affinity, they work with legal organizations to help them find better ways to improve their workflows. And they also help provide clients with insight and expert guidance that they'll need to build a thriving law practice as well as legal departments. So with the new year, I thought it would make sense to partner up with them to help current law firm clients to help with some of these concerns that they have. So I'm happy to introduce Paul Unger and Rob Brockman, as well as Aparna Tutak, all from Affinity Consulting.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. And thanks, Tony, for hosting us. We really appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to give everyone sort of a brief background on myself and Paul and Aparna. I am a former CPA, former controller for a law firm. So been around legal technology for, I'm ashamed to say this, but almost 30 years now. So Paul is one of the owners at Affinity. He's also does a lot of speaking engagements. He's an author. He's also a former attorney. He does a lot of coaching with lawyers now to help them be more efficient with their time management. He does a lot of workshops for attorneys. And when he's not doing his speaking or writing, he's usually performing technology assessments through the United States and Canada. Paul also recently moved to the Atlanta area, so some of you may get the opportunity to meet him at one of the Atlanta ALA events sometime soon. I think he's been to one since he's been there. Aparna is one of our senior client engagement managers. She helps law firms and legal teams, corporate legal, with document management and process improvement. She's also in the Atlanta area, so you've probably seen her around at some of the Atlanta ALA events. And all right, with that, I'll turn it over to Paul to get started.
Okay, thanks, Rob. So as Rob indicated, one of the things that I love to do is teach, and that's like, I would say that's probably my biggest passion, is really teaching and educating about practice management and technology. I think it's it's important to realize whenever we attend a program like this, we get different perspectives, and I want to share with you a little bit about my perspective and the lens that I look through. When we approach any type of problem, and oftentimes we are approached with a technology question or a technology problem, there's usually three components to it. There's a people problem, a process problem, and a technology problem. And oftentimes we have the technology, but we don't have the right process in place, or we might have a people problem as well. So oftentimes I refer to that as culture. When we compare, process versus technology, process always wins. If you have a bad process and you have good technology, you potentially spent a lot of money on a very expensive program, and it's become a very expensive doorstop because you don't have the process in place. So we teach about process extensively, and anytime we all want to tackle a technology issue, whether it's implement new technology, change the technology that we're using, we have to be thinking about the people and the process problem as well. Process versus technology, process always wins. Culture versus technology, culture eats process for lunch. So if you don't have the people problem in check, then you're going to have process problems, and you're going to have technology problems too. So you have to really look at all three. This is the lens that I look through, and I tried to identify one and say, I love time management. That's all I think about. But I look at problems from a security perspective, which I understand you all have had some educational sessions on cybersecurity, which is great. I'm going to touch on that a little bit here in a moment to kick things off. Document management is a very large part of my background. I've been working in that field for over 20 years. But a big part of me and my DNA is as a practicing attorney, and I still do general counsel work for our company. And it's very important to me that I keep a pulse on what we do as lawyers or legal professionals. And that's the lens that I look through. And I think you'll see that throughout, but we all have our different perspectives. A lot of this is also ingrained in two of my books. One is Tame the Digital Chaos, which is a time, task, email, and distraction management book. And the other one is Getting Your Digital House in Order, which is all about document management. We're going to talk a little bit about document management today, and especially as it pertains to the state of document management in legal technology. I want you to ask questions along the way. I want this to be interactive. We got the chat window up, so fire away questions. I don't want you to wait till the end. Ask them while it's fresh in your mind. If we wait to the end, you might say, "Oh, I've got to get to this other appointment, and I'll tackle it later." Ask when it's fresh in your mind. These slides and other slides and my tips presentations and many other educational programs are found on my speaking landing page, which is just pauljunger.com, and you'll see that downloads materials here. I will not put you on a mailing list unless you want me to. There's an option to do that. But if you want access to any of my papers, research that I cite, PowerPoint presentations, it is a free all-you-can-eat area. And so if you want an update, like maybe you attend a time management session of mine a month ago, and you want an update on my presentation in 6 months, go for it. It's there. And it's all for your benefit and education. So these are kind of the big areas that we're going to talk about today: document management, time billing, accounting. A little bit, I picked one issue dealing with time management and workflow that I want to talk about, and that's the state of note taking. It's a big problem in so many firms where we take notes and they end up as piles on people's desks. So I want to talk a little bit about the state of tablets today and some updates in tablet technology. And then just some miscellaneous Q&A, random things. Now, before we dive into the document management, I do want to talk about one trend that you may or may not have heard about in your previous sessions on cybersecurity. So I'll go over it very quickly, but it is an important one. And it is the need for a written information security program, a WISP. That's the kind of the modern day terminology for a cybersecurity plan. Now, I'm sure you talked about this or you've heard about it in other programs, the need to put together that written policy and procedure. But there's an interesting trend that's happening across the United States, and that's the advent of what we call data breach safe harbor laws. Ohio, my home state, was the first state, very surprising because usually we're not, we're in the middle of the pack or toward the end of any type of trend. We're not trendsetters by any means, but we are in this regard, which is kind of cool. But what is a data breach safe harbor law? Well, basically, it comes down to this. If you have a written information security program in place, it provides an organization, whether it's a law firm or a small business or a large business, it provides that business a safe harbor from claims of negligence, right? If we can prove that we have taken these steps and that we are actively involved in protecting client data as well as our own, then we are rewarded with a safe harbor and protection from negligence claims. In Ohio, it's called, if you're looking for a model, right, it's the Ohio Data Protection Act. Sometimes it's called a Data Shield Act. If you Google Shield Act, you're going to get all sorts of other types of laws. But it's basically a data breach safe harbor law. And that's what other states are doing as well. So there's probably approaching a dozen states, including New York, who have adopted these or are considering the adoption of that. So it's an interesting trend. To qualify for the safe harbor, you have to have a written information security program that reasonably conforms to one of the following frameworks. And then there's a list of frameworks. The one that you probably want to pay attention to is NIST, right? The others, like, FedRAMP, there's no way, unless you've got a gazillion dollars, there's no way that any of us are going to become FedRAMP certified. Companies take years to do that, and they're usually software companies like a NetDocuments or an iManage or that type of company. But NIST is really the one that lays out, and I think as close to plain English as possible in language that we can understand. So when you write, bottom line is, when you write your written information security program, whether you have an incentive to do that, because there's a law or not, you want to be looking at the NIST framework and try to comply with that. And when you work with your security experts and your IT experts, that's really what you're trying to do. Georgia is not one of the states that has it in place yet, but I do understand that is something that I don't know if they have that legislation drafted, but it is something that has definitely come up on the legislative dashboard on the roadmap. Let's talk about document management. So in the traditional world of document management, I'll say the legacy traditional world, the staples of legal document management have long been, for 20 plus years, these four major players: NetDocuments, iManage, Worldox, and OpenText. And I'll tell you, OpenText is a little questionable because it's been around a very long time. In fact, perhaps the longest. Them and Worldox are pretty much neck and neck. But they just stopped paying attention to the legal industry, probably a dozen years ago. And so they still exist. They still have a legal market that they serve, but they have lost a lot of market share to the other three. So we typically think of the major three as NetDocuments, iManage, and Worldox. Well, in October of last year, that kind of changed. That picture changed a little bit because NetDocuments purchased Worldox, which is what I want to talk a little bit to you about today, because I know that some of you are Worldox users, or you might even be considering a document management change. So these are kind of the three major legal document management players in the market. We'll address Worldox here in a minute and what that looks like. There are some other options, though, that are very interesting. And over the last couple of years, the idea of using SharePoint, some organizations have tinkered with, very early on, they tinkered with the idea of using SharePoint for document management because they may have heard from an IT person that was a good idea, right? You already own it. The problem is it misses three major, almost non-starter features, right? Because they don't have, and that is email management, the ability to extract an email from Outlook into a client matter, right? Which is shocking if you think about it, because it's Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Outlook. You would think that would be a pretty easy thing to do. Apparently not. They just haven't done it. But email management, version control, legal versioning, being able to determine specifically, say not auto versioning like you see in Dropbox or Box or SharePoint. So real legal versioning, and then a strong search engine, right? So those are the three major reasons why SharePoint has never worked out as a viable legal document management system. Then comes along Caligo and Aparna. And Aparna, both of those, they're two different products, and they're competing products, to be clear. But for a very reasonable cost, you can layer Caligo or Aparna on top of SharePoint, and you can get those three things. You can get your email management, legal versioning, as well as, I'll say, better search, okay? Better search. The SharePoint Plus solution, right? SharePoint Plus Caligo or SharePoint Plus Aparna is a good solution if you have never experienced real legal document management. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, if you have used Worldox, or if you have used iManage, NetDocs, or OpenText, and you are used to the feature set, very mature feature set, 20-year plus mature feature set, and you go to a SharePoint Plus Caligo or SharePoint Plus Aparna, you are going to be disappointed, just because this is not a mature solution. Search, you get search, but it's not very strong. You get email management, but it's not nearly as robust and feature rich. And you do get legal versioning, which is pretty good, pretty decent. What you could probably get away with that piece of it. And the rest of the features too, just are very immature compared to the kind of the gold standards of Worldox, NetDocs, and iManage. So Jen, I'm not saying that that's not a path that you may want to take, but in our observation, and we were very excited about this very early on. We thought, wow, this is a game changer. And it may actually, it may cause some firms using Worldox or NetDocs or iManage to consider this SharePoint Plus solution. And what we found through feedback from clients is just what I said. The feature set just it's going to leave you disappointed, right? But listen, you should judge for yourself, and you should just know that this is an option on the table. They're obviously, SaaS cloud-based solutions. There are others. There's another viable solution for document management is Docrio by Litify. Litify is a Salesforce-based platform. I think that Docrio is a wonderful, especially first-generation document management solution, but it's probably best paired with Litify. So if you're going to go with Litify, you probably would go with Docrio. But if you don't go with Litify, using Docrio, I think the options of your traditional document management programs are probably better. But so that's kind of what's going on in the market. There are also a handful of others who are really trying to get into the legal document management game. They may get there. And, there's certainly more today than there were 10 years ago. When you compare document management to time billing and accounting solutions, the number of practice management solutions, it's very, Rob, right? It's just like, you think 3 major, 4, there was 4, and we thought there's only 4. That's great. There's only 4 to pick from. And now there's really 3, right? Or if you do the SharePoint Plus, but still that pales in comparison to the, Rob, what, dozens of practice management solutions out on the market today. The worlds of, in the early days of Amicus Attorney, Time Matters, legacy applications, Practice Master, which is still a force, right? A legacy application that is still a force in that arena. And then, of course, the modern day practice management solutions like Clio and Action Step and Litify and Advologics, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So let's talk a little bit about the
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
There was a question sent to me
privately. Yeah,
privately.
let's do that. Sure.
Did you have any thoughts about Smokeball?
Listen, Smokeball for document management is what we typically refer to as document management light. So when we look at, and that's true, generally true with all practice management, document management solutions. So go back 30 years, Amicus Attorney. Today, Smokeball, Clio, Action Step, Rocket Matter, they all have document management light built in, which means that they have document management features, but it's harder to get the documents in and out, meaning the direct integration with Adobe Acrobat or Foxit or Word, the email integration. The features are immature, and the capacity as well. So when we look at when we look at, can it support a 50 user environment with the million documents a year that we're going to save in it, right? So in a very small environment, it may work. It may work just fine. So the larger the environment, and it doesn't have to get that large, you get up to 10 users and you start needing those mature features that we see in a Worldox or NetDocuments or iManage. So let's talk about Worldox a little bit. I know that many of you have questions about the state of Worldox, what's happening, what actually happened. So in October of last year, NetDocuments acquired Worldox. They acquired the software, they acquired the support, the staff. Make no mistake about it, this was not an acquisition so that they can continue the development of this legacy application. The writing on the wall clearly is that Worldox at some day will go away. We don't know that day yet, and I think NetDocuments has been very gracious and very upfront. We don't about continuing the support. It was not a situation where they bought it and said, we're going to give you 3 months or 6 months or a year to move over or to move to something else before we kill it. So they are continuing the development of patches and support and adding seats. If let's say you merge with a 5-person firm or you hire 5 people, they're going to give you 5 more licenses, right? So they're not going to sell Worldox to a brand new site. Just that the brand new site situation is not a reality. That's not going to happen. So it was an acquisition. The reality is the on-prem solutions are diminishing. They clearly are. I remember having talks with the Burks, who were the creators of Worldox, Ray Zwiefelhofer, Fred, the primary developer, Fred Engel, and they all wanted a SaaS solution. They all wanted cloud. They just couldn't decide on what that ultimate solution would be, and they couldn't come to an agreement on the amount of money to invest to make that happen on what solution. So ultimately they settled on something that ended up being, quite frankly, and you could talk to those same Worldox people today, and they would probably tell you today in hindsight, a lackluster cloud solution, right? Which they called Worldox Cloud. It was a hybrid solution, very similar to what iManage was doing with their hybrid solution for iManage Cloud for a number of years too. Limited, it's not true SaaS, not a true what they call multi-tenant client. And at the end of the day, really couldn't keep up with a true SaaS solution like a NetDocuments. So they kept their legacy application. They continued to develop their Worldox Cloud until they were eventually, purchased. And in fairness, listen, it took iManage over 10 years to develop their true SaaS solution, which is just really hitting the market, and they're moving their legacy clients over to it. So it's really their true SaaS solution is in its infancy, right? And tens of millions of dollars later, and very painful to do. So it is it's a monumental task, and and unfortunately, we would have loved. All of us, many of us on this call, all of us here from Affinity, remember the days when when Worldox seriously was considering a true SaaS solution, and we were all very excited, and then again very disappointed to learn that they didn't go down that road. So at the end of the day, NetDocuments acquired them. And they're a great company. NetDocuments is a wonderful company. iManage is a wonderful company as well. So they landed, they were acquired by a good company, a wholesome company with values, and that's good. And that's good for everyone. It doesn't mean that you will necessarily move to NetDocuments. You may move to something else, but if there was a solution that it landed in, I'm personally glad that it was that one. So if you're not familiar with NetDocuments is a cloud-based document management system. They've been around since 1996. That is a long time. You think back to 1996 cloud, and it was truly one of the first legal cloud solutions on the market. And everybody thought they were insane. Everybody thought there's no way that firms are going to trust putting their documents into this thing called the cloud. And they survived, and they are a force to be reckoned with in the market today. So it's delivered in a browser as opposed to a thick program that's installed on your computer. There are desktop add-ins, or I'll say desktop modules so they're components, it's probably a better word to use, that are installed that allows your local computer and local programs to communicate with the browser. Very simple terms, if you're in Microsoft Word and you hit save, or in Excel and PowerPoint and Adobe, it communicates with the browser and then saves the document in the cloud. So we can enjoy the fast local experience that we have with like Microsoft Word, and save or Outlook or Excel and save things into NetDocuments. So it has a very robust desktop integration that they have developed over for the 20 years, and that's what we call direct integration. World-class security. Of all of the document management systems on the market today, it is clearly the leader and is what everybody else strives to be. It doesn't mean that iManage doesn't meet the requirements of Rule 1.6, our ethical obligation to take reasonable steps to secure client data and confidentiality. They all meet that standard. They do. All the legal document management systems meet that standard. It's just that NetDocuments is truly the leader in that world. Easy collaboration because it's SaaS based and it's subscription based. So you pay on an annual subscription, ongoing for the rest of your life. The things that we all resisted with cloud subscriptions and all software subscription services in the early days. Like, what? I just can't buy it and then use it for 10 years? Nope. Right? Software companies don't they don't survive on that model. They have to be on a subscription based or they don't survive. So with NetDocuments, they package their software in these different classes. So they have an organize bundle, they have deliver, they have plan, and then a couple others. Organize is the one, in particular, these three parts: the core NetDocuments product, the ND Mail, and what we call OCR, ND OCR, which they call just OCR now, which that is what replaces Worldox. So if you're a Worldox user today and you want an equal product that is cloud-based, that is what you're looking at. If you go on the NetDocuments site, that's what you're gonna look at. Organize. You're gonna look at those three components. Power Automate, ND Sync, ND Mirror are part of Organize, but they're add-ons that come at an additional cost. Power Automate is just a Microsoft tool that allows you to communicate with most commonly create matters in Power Automate, and then it creates them in NetDocuments. ND Sync is a tool that is used to synchronize NetDocuments with perhaps a time billing and accounting system, which Rob is going to talk about here in a minute, or a practice management system. Like, you have Clio, or you have Rocket Matter, or Action Step, right? Or a time billing and accounting program. And when you create that matter in the time billing and accounting program, and you want it to create the matter in NetDocuments, ND Sync is what's used for that. ND Mirror is an application that if you want to hug, we say this all the time. And Aparna, I think I stole this from Aparna. If you want to hug your documents at night, right, and you want to download those documents onto a server under your roof, you can hug those documents at night through an add-on, an additional service called ND Mirror. And it just mirrors down everything that's in the cloud to your local environment. In case you worry. And a lot of times that was a big thing in the early days. It's less of a big thing now because we tend to trust cloud. Deliver is another bundle that involves collab spaces, set builder, and pattern builder. Collab spaces is just a place where you can long-term collaborate with external parties. Set builder is a way to assemble PDF binders, like closing packages, maybe a closing binder. It could even be like a trial notebook. And then pattern builder is fairly new. Pattern builder is really a document automation tool that integrates with NetDocuments. So you can create and store templates like HotDocs. It's not as robust as HotDocs, but it's still pretty cool. And you can merge data with external data sources and then save those documents into NetDocs. I won't go into all the great detail into the weeds of the other bundles, but the one, if you're using Worldox today, the one that is a must as a starting point to replace what you're used to with Worldox is Organize and the core NetDocuments, OCR, and ND Mail. These are some of the other components. One thing I'll just point out on this one is the integrations. Over 150 integrations they have built with other programs. And that's pretty robust. We compare that to 10 years ago. NetDocuments has really, really come a long way. So good chance if you're using, bottom line, good chance if you're using a program like a time billing and accounting program or a practice management program, there's some way to integrate that program with NetDocuments. Okay, so some feedback on moving to NetDocuments from Worldox. Very similar concepts to Worldox. So your core direct integration with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Adobe Acrobat, Outlook, your save to your email. You've got data security out the wazoo, and especially a much higher level of data security in the cloud than Worldox. Because think about it, with Worldox, it's under your roof. So Worldox doesn't provide security. You in your network provides security. Equal user access anywhere because it's cloud-based. So generally your user experience, if you used Worldox Cloud, or if you used Worldox in a terminal server or remote desktop environment, oftentimes if you weren't in that main office, you kind of felt a little neglected, or that you got the kind of the cheaper technology or the cheaper experience. With NetDocuments, you don't get that. And that's true with iManage Cloud as well. It's just, let's be fair. With when you look at a lot of these features, whether it's NetDocuments or iManage, if you're in a Worldox environment today, most likely if you're in a small, medium firm, you're probably looking at NetDocuments. If you're in a small, medium, or large firm or very large enterprise, you're going to still look at NetDocuments, because NetDocs supports anywhere from one user to thousands and thousands of users. But you're going to be looking at iManage as well. iManage tends to look at the larger, I mean, let's be fair, the larger environments, the larger firms. So if you're a large firm, you should be looking at both very strongly. If you're a small firm, you could look at both, but you're probably going to land on NetDocuments, because I just don't think iManage is very interested if you're under 50 users. So equal experience everywhere. iManage and NetDocs. If you're at home, a hotel, a courtroom, work from home, a satellite office, you're going to get a good user experience in all of those. NetDocuments does provide an Android app as well as an iOS app. So Apple and Android. So if you want access to documents from your phone, if you're an Apple user, you've got it in both iManage and NetDocs. If you're an Android user, you got it in NetDocuments. Folders and filters, you have the ability to really organize documents in a much different way than Worldox. With Worldox, you organize documents by filters and using your fields: client, matter, doc type, author, date. Sound familiar? Right? That's the square peg that you have to fit everything in. And you can't set up folders and you can't organize things in containers. You can do that in both iManage and NetDocuments. Index and search is much stronger. Instant indexing of full text as opposed to overnight. And you have OCR as well, which you had that in Worldox if you layered in Symphony OCR or another like content crawler or something out like that on top of it. You do get better performance in indexing and search. Because it is browser-based or cloud-based, though, just to keep in mind, anything that operates within a browser is going to feel 1 or 2 seconds slower, right? Because it's just, you click and you kind of wait a second, that type of thing. Email management, you have really enhanced email management features in both NetDocuments and iManage. And then, of course, you have collaboration as well. So what happens now? Let me wrap this up, and I'm going to turn this over to Rob here in a minute. But Worldox is going to continue the Worldox services under the umbrella of NetDocuments. They're going to continue customer support, licensing services, and new seats that you need, patches. Worldox Cloud, they have announced they will retire that. End of life is August 31 of this year. So if you're a Worldox Cloud user, you need to be moving. You need to be creating a plan very quickly to get some to replace that. But their legacy application does not have an end of life announced yet. And so there's no urgency. We still think it's a great idea. You got to be thinking ahead and what you want to do. And then of course they're gonna still continue to host Worldox Mobile, which is the Worldox mobile app on the phone and on the iPad, if that's something that you currently have. No new Worldox sites, as I indicated, and then Cloud's end of life is August 31st of this year. So continued support, rebranding, patches, you can expect that from Worldox. From NetDocuments, you're going to expect to be called. I'm sure that you have been already. They're going to provide you a pathway to NetDocuments. Depending on your situation, they may even provide support or dollars to move to NetDocuments. It really depends on how bad they want you as a client. But in any event, they have already built tools to help the data migration. So relying on a consulting company like ours or anyone to move that data from Worldox into NetDocuments is becoming easier because they are developing those tools to make it easier. So the longer you wait, the better those tools will be. That's one benefit of waiting. The non-benefit of waiting is that you don't want to be up against a wall either, right? So you need to start planning that. Ongoing announcements and product demonstrations, of course, as well. Okay, so what should you do now? You should start thinking about what you love and you hate about Worldox and make a list, right? So think about when you move to a new document management system, what do you want to change? What can you reinvent? What can you make better, right? What do you want to keep? Yeah, and you should start thinking about the data that's contained within NetDocuments, which is really my last point before I turn it over to Rob, and that is think about retention and archive, because you may have 30 years of documents in in Worldox, and you may not want to move it all. You may want to, maybe you move the last 10 years and you archive the other 20 in SharePoint. So SharePoint can search. It's not as good. You know, you don't have the Boolean connectors and the robust proximity searches, dog within 3 words of bite, but you could still search, and it's still in a place that's accessible, it's indexed, it's safe, it's backed up, right? But you may choose to only bring over 10 years. And then I guess the neat thing, because we've all been talking about document retention and archive rules for ages as geeky IT professionals, but it's always been a back burner project for law firms because, we don't get paid to do that. We have billable work to do. So it usually gets put on the back burner and completely forgot about. And that's why you have 30 years of data that you've never archived, right? So it's a good time to think about the retention rules and creating a policy and creating a plan and procedures to execute that policy. On that front, whether you go with a NetDocuments or an iManage, there are tools like FileTrail that it's all about information governance. It's all about how long are we going to keep this stuff? When we close a matter, right? How can we automate this so that those files are automatically archived and moved to this other location, so we're not spending money? And this is the key. This is why it's happening. Because we pay for that cloud space. We don't, it's easy to go out and buy, some hard drives under your roof. It's very cheap to do that, and that's why you just kept everything forever, right? But when we move to cloud, we're paying for that space. So and that's kind of a good kick in the butt, quite frankly, that we start thinking about those things. So that's good on that front. All right, enough of that. Let me turn this over to Rob.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
Before we do that, there was a question. Maybe you could just touch on this briefly about the difference between a NetDocuments or even an iManage, true document management platform versus some of the all-in-one systems that are out there. And they mentioned, Clio and Centerbase, which can you maybe just talk about the document management comparison? Yeah.
So I use the term document management light when I was talking about that earlier, but let me expand on that a little bit. So when you let's talk about email, the feature set of email management. When we look at how we save emails from Outlook into, we'll say Clio, since that was brought up, typically the performance of that is pretty lackluster, right? So we click and we wait 5 seconds for anything to happen. The feature set you can extract an email, like a received email, from your inbox over into the case management system. Many of them don't have the ability to send and save at the same time. So you have to go back into your inbox, your sent items, and then save them in, or you copy yourself and you do those type of things. Very weak, and typically a 5, 6, or 7 click process, right? So we say save to whatever, Clio, or save to Time Matters or Practice Master or whatever it might be, and then it's 6 or 7 clicks in. Now, if we compare that to especially NetDocuments does it better than any of them. iManage is close behind, right? Worldox was close behind as well, but NetDocuments uses what they call ND mail and artificial intelligence so that there's a prediction panel. When I save an email, a prediction panel pops up and says, hey, I noticed that you sent an email or you received an email, and it probably belongs in this short list of 5 or 6. And you just click, you check the box and you're done. You click anywhere else and you're done. So saving email, that is very robust compared to the 5 or 6 click lackluster performance. And if we look at all the core features of document management, it's very similar. Like search is very weak. Search is very weak in a practice management solution that does document management. And quite frankly, that's why Clio partners with NetDocuments. That's why Centerbase partners with NetDocuments or iManage, right? They partner with those real legal document management programs because they know at some point you're probably going to outgrow or feel that those features just aren't good enough. But they want to provide, and here's the unfortunate part. If you jump on, a sales call with Clio today, they're going to say, this is all you need. It does everything, and it does document management, and does it do document management? Yes. Does it do document management well? No, it really doesn't. So that's the reality. And so it's just the feature set is very weak compared to a robust legal document management program. Hopefully that provides a little better insight. So, all right, Rob, time billing and accounting, take it away.
Yeah. Do you have the slides?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So first, let me say, unlike Paul, I am not a national speaker, and I don't write books. So my slides are going to be a little boring, but bear with me. We're also at getting in about the 50-minute mark. So I'm going to try to keep this pretty high level because we could really have a whole nother session just on time billing and accounting, and I'll even extend that into the practice management systems as well. Paul sort of alluded to this earlier, but the number of choices now in this space is incredible compared to the document management space for legal. We went through a period maybe about 10, 12 years ago where there was quite a bit of consolidation in the market where, Adirant purchased products like Omega and Rainmaker and Client Profiles, and Thompson purchased ProLaw, and we saw some other acquisitions. And that was about 10, 12, 15 years ago, and nothing really changed a whole lot until more recently. We had Coyote Analytics, who came out maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and they were one of the few new players in that market to come in quite a while. But now with cloud, everybody wanting cloud, we've seen a lot of these new cloud-based applications coming out, and they continue to come out. And but at the same time, because there's so many of these new players, we're starting to see this consolidation again. So we've had a lot of acquisitions just in the last couple of years again. So we had let's see, iSolve, right? So purchased Tabs and Practice Master. We had even Affinipay purchased MyCase, I think it was last year. So we're continuing to see, or we're sort of seeing a new wave in place of those consolidations. And we probably will continue to see it because unfortunately, with all of these new players, we're not getting anybody sort of rising to the top. Everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and we'll get into some of the specific company softwares in just a minute. But we're also seeing a trend where, as someone mentioned, you're seeing a lot of these cloud-based time billing accounting softwares morphing into these all-in-one practice management solutions. And again, a lot of them have a lot of strength in the practice management world. They do have that document management like Paul talked about, but it is fairly weak when you compare it to the standalone products. And then you also have sort of a newer group where they have a really, really robust feature set on the practice management side. And they're built, a couple of them are built on the Salesforce platform, but they really don't have anything on the accounting and the billing side of things. So they're having to pair with products like Accounting Seat or QuickBooks Online to do their accounting. But obviously the thing that, everything is going to is mobile, 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 right? Everybody wants easy access from their phone to capture time, to review their pre-bills, maybe not on their phone, but on an iPad, easy access to their client matter, billing information. So that is a trend I think we'll continue to see, and what most of the developers are working on. Paul, do you mind going to the next one? Paul, you're muted if you're talking.
Yep, I noticed this is my first time on Zoom. Sorry.
Oh,
Hey, question. Like, so when I do assessments, oftentimes a firm is thinking about moving to cloud, and they just want to move everything to cloud. And the stumbling block that I frequently come across is in the time billing and accounting arena, because they have advanced time billing and accounting needs. And traditionally that has forced me to make recommendations oftentimes to stay with a legacy time billing and accounting system, because the cloud-based ones aren't as feature rich. Is that still the case, or is that getting any better?
I think in general that is the case. I mean, I think you're seeing some improvements, and I've got the last slide. I'll talk about some of the specific products, but in general, that one of the big problems is if you're a firm and you have some robust billing needs or robust accounting needs, trust accounting, multi-payer type billing situations, most of the cloud-based accounting solutions that are out there don't have that functionality, which is why you do see a lot of people still continuing to use some of these legacy products. Most of those products now have the ability to be hosted, but they're not true browser-based solutions. And some of the hosting causes some problems with some of the integrations they have as well.
Gotcha.
Do you mind? Oh, there we go. So yeah, so one of the things that we talk to our clients about, and I'm sure Paul would agree with this, is there is no perfect product. There's no silver bullet out there. We wish there was, but there just isn't. And unfortunately, right now, when you start looking at the time billing accounting, and again, I'll extend it to practice management solutions as well, it's almost like looking at a Cheesecake Factory menu. There's 16 pages of things to choose from. And it's really hard for firms to narrow down, what exactly is it that they really need. And obviously from a size for, the needs can vary by size. I mean, a five user environment is probably gonna have a lot different needs in terms of time billing and accounting versus 150 user environment. But that's not always true either, right? You might have a 10-person firm who does a lot of insurance defense work, and they have a big need to be able to do e-billing and use compliance rules and be able to do, multi-payer situations where they've got to bill 16 different carriers, 10%, whatever the percent works out to. And a lot of these cloud-based solutions just don't have the ability to do that. And again, it can vary by practice type as well. If you're a personal injury firm or a plaintiff firm, you're not going to have as much need on the accounting side and the billing side as some of the other types of practices. And also, your clients play a big part. So, if you're working for large corporate firms, then you're going to probably have much more complicated billing arrangements that maybe some of these newer cloud-based products won't be able to handle for you. So also, one of the things that I always found fascinating is that, firms are looking at these solutions and they don't do enough due diligence. They really don't. They might do 2 or 3 demos and make a decision to make a move with something they're going to be married to for 10 to 15 years. I think we do strongly recommend that you do a deep dive on those feature requirements and make sure that you're really understanding what the products can do and what they cannot do, so that you're not surprised, when you go live, to learn about a feature that you just assumed they had that they don't have. And then, of course, the other thing now we're seeing, obviously the cloud products versus the hosted versus the on-premise. We sort of talked about that a little bit. A lot of these legacy products do have the ability to be hosted, but a lot of them, some of it limits their functionality that people like to have, particularly with the integrations piece. And the other thing that also surprised me that a lot of firms don't do, or they don't do a great job, is, really check the references of these products, because there's a lot of products out there, and if you're vetting them out, check the references, because there's been so many times that I've been involved with these where firms don't even check the references they're given. And talk to people that are in the process of doing a migration or a conversion now, and find out how it's going, because that's where a lot of companies sort of fall down, especially with the time billing and accounting products. It's with the implementation. The product itself, is fairly good, but they don't handle the implementations, or they're growing too fast and there's pain there, or maybe they're not going to migrate all your data. So that gets to that next point, is like, how much data do you want to convert? Because a lot of the cloud-based products, they don't really have the ability to bring in all of your historical information. But do you really need it? Right. So those are the kinds of questions that you have to ask. I mean, I think a lot of what we're seeing now are firms that are deciding to just bring in, basic information, maybe the client matter information, maybe the open bills, but maybe they're not bringing the client billing history in. Maybe they're not bringing the full general ledger history in. And that, reduces costs. It makes the conversion process itself simpler. And the other thing that we'll suggest is that, think about bringing in a third-party project manager. We do this, quite a number of times a year for our clients who are, they've decided on a product, but they want to bring us in to sort of be that third party. So we are there to hold the software provider accountable to the firm for all those things that they promised them, to make sure we keep the timelines, and to also just help the firm, because a lot of times firms are making this big, huge change, and it affects everybody, right? It affects everybody from the attorneys to the billing staff to the accounting to the admin staff. And maybe they haven't done it before in their career, or maybe they've only done it once or twice. And we have people, consultants like Paul and others within the organization that may have been involved with thousands of these types of migrations. So they have a whole different perspective to bring. And don't be afraid to bring that third party person in. Looks like we had a question about QuickBooks. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, QuickBooks, again, it's a very small product. I mean, if you don't have a lot of needs, then you can continue to use QuickBooks. There is a QuickBooks Online now. It says the question I said was about the legacy system, but you can use the QuickBooks Online. It's fairly inexpensive, but it's a very small product in terms of what it can do on the billing side of things, and also on the accounting side of things. It's pretty flat. Most accountants, when they look at QuickBooks, get the little EBGB out, because there's not. It's intended to be for small firms for sure, or small companies in general. So here are sort of the players that are out there right now, and I'll start with the top two, because most people on this call are not going to be a good fit for these products. That's Aderant Expert, and I'll call it /Sierra, and Thomson 3E. Thomson is sunsetting one of their sort of staple products, Elite Enterprise, which has been around for 25 to 30 years and was sort of one of the industry standards, particularly for mid-sized firms, for a long time. That is sunset as of, I believe, October of this year. And so they're forcing their clients to either pick another product or to move to their new platform, which is 3E, which is really, really expensive. So I think we had a couple of bigger firms that were registered. So, maybe a fit for them, but probably not many other people. It comes with a big price tag. It's very complex. And most firms just don't really need all of that feature set that they're bringing. If you're in the AmLaw 250, you're probably using one of those top two products. And then we've got sort of this legacy group of Orion, Tabs, Coyote, SharePoint, ProLaw, where they're very feature rich. They've been around for a long time. You can host them, but again, they're not true browser based. But if you need that functionality, these are still viable products for you to use. We have lots of clients using all of these products. And then the Centerbase is sort of there by itself, because I think right now, of those true browser-based systems, they are sort of the leader. But that doesn't mean they have everything. So they're leading in terms of what they can do on the accounting, billing, practice management. But if you are primarily doing insurance defense, and 90% of your work, you have to do multi-payer, multi-level billing, which, if you're not familiar with that, that's a good thing. But that means that you're billing the first $5,000 to maybe 2 or 3 parties, and then everything over 5,000 might get billed to 15 different parties. And if that's the case, Centerbase is not a good fit for you. But if you have lower needs on the time and billing side, then it's a pretty good product. It's pretty comprehensive. It has good integration with NetDocuments. And then sort of the steps sort of behind them are the Zola's, Lead, Practice Panther, Action Step. Again, they all have their strengths and weaknesses, but they're a little behind where Centerbase is on the time billing and accounting side right now.
And Centerbase is SaaS. It's
Correct.
browser based, right? To be clear.
Right.
Okay.
That correct. Yeah, they're true browser based, true browser based. And then under that category, you've got the Clio, Fileline, in my case, which again, they're ones that they say they have some accounting or billing, but they really don't. They're paired up traditionally with, with some other accounting solution. And then at the end of that list is Solidify and AdLogix. And those two are built on the Salesforce platform, and they're primarily practice management solutions. And they're very strong in the practice management piece and the workflow piece and the customization piece. As you can imagine, using the Salesforce platform gives people a lot of ability to do kind of whatever they want with workflows. But the problem is neither one of them have anything on the billing and accounting side. And so you're forced to use sort of some lower end products like an Accounting Suite or even a QuickBooks. And so that may not be a great fit for you on that side of it. Now, there are some talks that at least one of them is going to be developing their own billing and accounting piece. But again, now you're talking about, when you talk about products like Orion, Tabs, Coyote, ProLaw, these are products that have been around for 30 years. So as good as Litify's development team may be, trying to develop something to compete with that rich feature set, it's not an overnight task. It's probably at best a few years. So that's kind of where we are in the market now, as far as time billing and accounting. And we're happy to do more discussion on that and dive deeper. Just wanted to kind of give sort of a high level overview. Again, I feel like with all those products out there, it's almost like looking at the Cheesecake Factory menu at this point. But I think probably over the next few years, we'll see some of that shake out. You'll probably see some more consolidation. You'll probably have a few of these products that are intended to be to the smaller and mid-size firms sort of rise to the top, would be my guess.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. So the last thing that we want to talk about, I think I know we had 90 minutes, but we're not going to take up all that time, but we're glad to stay on with you for questions and answers. But is one little tiny piece of kind of workflow and time management that relates to note-taking. And, quick story and little background behind this. After the COVID lockdown, I started doing programs on site, a lot more professional development programs on site. And I think, pre-COVID, maybe I just became desensitized to this issue because I just saw it everywhere. But as I was showing up in these law firms, it was law firm after law firm. I would walk down the halls and look in the doors and literally just barely see the heads of people over these piles of documents. And I was doing time management programs for those folks, time management education and one-on-one coaching. And I realized, this is a really big problem. Like, the notes, it's not just about notes missing from the file, right? That notes that have been taken or documents that you mark up that are on the corner of the desk for years, right? That never make its way to the file, right? That's a whole other issue. But on top of it, there are tasks that are buried in those notes that people don't capture in their task list. And so it's really, those piles of notes are about capturing tasks and capturing the notes in having a complete file. So you have a central file and a central source of truth. So we started to explore workflows and formalized workflows that could solve this problem, right? And of course, tablets have been around for ages. So I want to talk about some of the strategies there and give you an update on some of the tablet technology. You all have seen this. This is actually a screenshot of the Remarkable tablet. You've seen advertisements for the Remarkable tablet. So I get lots of questions about the Remarkable. So that in a moment. So here's what we're going to talk about: iPad, Android, and then the Remarkable. I'm going to say Remarkable type technologies, because there's many other Remarkable type technologies out there that are competitors to it. So iPad first, been around the longest. So let's talk about the pros. It is a Swiss Army knife. When somebody came to me, 2 years ago and said, "Hey, what's all this buzz about the Remarkable?" I thought, this is insane. This device, after you buy the stylus and the cover, and then you subscribe to their cloud service, you're paying more money than an iPad, and it only does one thing, right? And so my initial gut reaction, as many people had the same reaction, is, why would you do that? Why would you spend $600 on this tablet that's a one-trick pony when you can buy an iPad that is literally a Swiss Army knife and in color and can do literally thousands of things, right? So more on that in a minute, but it is truly, an iPad is truly a Swiss Army knife. Color. If you want to mark up a document and ink it in red and in green or in blue, because you kind of color code your markup, can't do that in a Remarkable, but you absolutely can do that on an iPad or an Android-based tablet. So that's key. That's important. Value, because of course it's a Swiss Army knife. Tons, it's been out for a long time. Prices have come down, so it's an incredible value. You get the whole Apple ecosystem, which, whether you love or hate Apple, the reality is that ecosystem is amazing, right? The watch, the phone, the iPad, all the devices, AirTags. It's just an amazing. Apple is brilliant. Whether you want to give the credit to them or not, they're high quality systems, and it's a great ecosystem. Direct saving of documents. I'll show that in a minute. And what I mean by that, in just very simple terms, you could take notes in a note-taking app on an iPad and save it directly into Worldox, NetDocs, or iManage, or Dropbox, or SharePoint, right? And that's big, because then you don't have to scan, you don't have to email them, you can save them directly into those applications. Great keyboards and great, really, peripheral devices. Cons: it's a little bit heavier and it's a little bit thicker than like a Remarkable type tablet or a Sony digital paper. Battery, that you don't get the life. My Remarkable that I have behind me, that thing, I have not charged it in 2 months, and it is probably 60% charged. So amazing battery life compared to an iPad or an Android tablet. Swiss Army knife also means distractions. So, you have email, you have Facebook, you have TikTok, you have all the games, right? So, and those can be distractions where, your primary goal might just be note-taking. So let's talk about the Remarkable now. Pros: battery life, huge, enormous. Like I said, 2 months of battery life, and using it every single day, right? It's an amazing battery life. It's simple, no distractions, and super lightweight and thin. I mean, it is just, it's amazing in those regards, but it is only black and white, right? It's only black and white, but it is clearly the lightest and the thinnest. Cons: it's a one-trick pony. It's very expensive for that one trick. It starts at $300, but make no mistake, when you add the cover and you add the stylus, you add the subscription, it easily that $300 jumps up to like $600, $700, $800 very quickly. No color and no direct saving of documents. I'll demonstrate what that looks like in a minute. So your workflows are pretty straightforward. Your first method is, if you are a person that says, listen, I'm going to use the legal pad because I think better, I retain better, I like writing on paper, and I'm just going to scan it in, right? That's fine. You take your notes on your legal pad, just like you have been for the last 30 years. When you're done, and this is the step that most people miss, instead of putting it on the corner of your desk, you've got to extract the tasks. So you add them to your task list, you add them to whatever your project task list. And then you scan the paper. So that generally probably the best desktop scanner on the market today is that Fujitsu IX1600. I just bought a brand new one last night. Actually, I'm super excited, sitting on the box over in the other room. So you scan, arm's length away, you load it, one touch button, scans in, and your document management pops up and says, what matter do you want to save it in? This system, this particular scanner integrates with all the legal document management systems. So Worldox, NetDocs, iManage, even OpenText. And so you can load the document, hit the one touch button, that big blue scanner button that you see there on the interface. And once it's done scanning the document, Worldox pops up or NetDocs pops up and says, all right, pick the client. Tell me the doc type. What folder do you want to put it in? So it doesn't get any easier than that. That is a 1-minute process. You compare that to going down the hall, scanning on a big multi-function copier printer scanner. That is a 5-minute process. Okay. 5 minutes, clearly. I timed it a million times. And so that is a pretty big difference. We generally don't recommend desktop scanners for everybody on everybody's desk, especially today, because we get so many things digital, but probably all the legal assistants and paralegals, and then maybe a handful of attorneys who want to do it. If you're mobile, we recommend, and you could do this on an Android phone or an iPhone. You can load the Adobe Scan app. It's free. And you can snap a picture, turn the page, snap a picture. It finds the edges perfectly. It OCR, creates an OCR text searchable PDF. And then you email it to yourself, or you could save it directly from Adobe Scan into Worldox if you have the Worldox app, iManage if you have the iManage app, and then natively in NetDocuments. And that's either from, if it's Android, then you'll have to have NetDocuments, because iManage and Worldox don't have Android apps. But that's that's the paper to digital. Of course, that takes time, and you have to have that process in place. Otherwise, those documents pile up on the desk. So that's method one. Method two, you just take notes. You type your notes. You open up it. We lose sight of that, but some people really want to handwrite, and that is the way their brain retains information. That's okay. Then you're going to do it method 1 or method 3 or 4. But if you can type, listen, you could just open up your word processor. You take your notes. You're probably typing. If you're on an iPad, you could actually do handwriting in Microsoft Word as well, and then you save, right? And that's the workflow. But we oftentimes forget, well, we could take notes directly in a word processor. You want to extract your tasks and then save it into the system. Method 3, that's the remarkable type tablet. And on the bottom there, you see Rocketbook, Lexico, Sony Digital Paper, Onyx, Kindle Scribe. So those are some of the competitors. But your process is to take the note, email. So you have to email it to an assistant, or some of these will have a direct integration with like OneNote or Dropbox or Box, which still means that there's a second step going to grab that document and then putting it into its final resting place, which is the client matter folder. So you then save it from your computer. That looks like this. So this is actually a screenshot that I took from my Remarkable. You take your notes, you come down here to the little send button and then send by email. And then you get an address book, and then it actually retains the people that you sent it to. You're probably sending it to yourself or to your assistant. And then you extract it you go to your inbox, you extract it out of that, and you save it into the client matter folder, whether it's Windows folders or, NetDocuments, iManage, or Worldox. Method 4 is direct saving. And that's from an iPad or an Android device. If you use NetDocs, if you use iManage or Worldox, it's going to be just from an iPad, but it works like this. You create your note, you can email it to your assistant with instructions, or you can just save it directly. And so you got the option. You could do either one. So this is how that looks. You open up your iPad cover, you create your note, you then save it directly to And so you take your notes, and then this is what it looks like. When you go up to hit your action button, you know, that universal little piece of paper with the arrow, right? Your share button. Then you can save it directly to your fill in the blank, NetDocs, Worldox, or iManage. So you take your notes and save it directly in. And that's really the gist. Those are the options. The best note-taking apps I would recommend if you're an iPad user, iOS in the iOS ecosystem, I would say Notability, hands down. It's super simple, very cheap. I think it's $10 now. I remember when it was 50 cents. This one is called Good Notes. Also very good. You don't get to organize your notes and notebooks as easily. And then don't forget about Microsoft OneNote. It's just a little bit more complex, but it's free. And it's, you know, part of the Windows operating system, works on a Windows tablet, works on an Android tablet, and works on an iPad as well. And that's kind of the neat thing about OneNote, right? You have to learn it. It's a little bit harder to learn because it does more things. It's a little bit more complex. But once you do, it's pretty straightforward. And you could use it, you know, any note that you take on your tablet is basically saved in OneDrive, and then you can, or SharePoint, and then you can access those notes and share them with other people very easily. With Notability and Good Notes, you're not really sharing notes with other people, so the collaboration piece is missing, but they're both very super simple. And most of the time we're taking notes for ourselves, and then we're saving it into the case file, so that works. But those are your options. And I just wanted to give you kind of a quick update on a problem that we see that's quite prevalent and of a pretty big interest. That's everything that we had on our agenda. So we are more than happy to stay on and answer any questions. So we'll just kind of open the floor for any questions. And then I don't know, Rob, if there's anything, and Sandra, anything else that you want to add before we turn it over to just general Q&A?
No, I don't think so. Thank you for that, Paul. Sandra, did you have anything? Do you want me to leave them on mute, Paul, or and just have them use the chat still?
You know, I take them off mute. Take everybody off mute. That would be great. If people have questions, we would love to take them and make this as practical as possible for you.
All right. Well, I don't know if I can unmute everyone, but I did give you the ability to unmute yourself. So if you have a question or want to make a comment, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything. I thought this was great. I mean, this was more than what I anticipated. I thought it was great information.
Richard, can you say again what you think will happen with folks that can't meet the Worldox deadline of 8/31? So Richard, to be clear, that deadline only applies if you're using Worldox Cloud. So are you using Worldox Cloud, or are you using the traditional Worldox on-prem solution?
Well, so I'm with Network One. I was thinking more in terms of, you know, either some of our clients, or if we meet folks that are, you know, didn't know about this specific deadline, and all of a sudden it's a bit of a scramble, right? Because that date's not that far off. So from our side, we just probably want to make sure that we're advising them correctly and saying, hey, here's what you need to be thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So listen, there's plenty of time. I don't want to understate it. Okay. But you know, we are essentially in March. You have until basically September 1 to move platforms. So there's plenty of time. There's no need to panic. There's no need to call. We're not yelling fire in a crowded theater. There's plenty of time to plan and to move right now. It would be a different situation if we were in July and having this conversation. So the key is that you start planning now. And what I would do is I would plan to get demonstrations of NetDocuments, of course, because they're the easiest one, and they're right there. They own Worldox. Of iManage, you should look at the competitors. Size them up, see what they're willing to do, and then go back to NetDocs and say, hey, these guys are willing to do this. Are you willing to do, So competition is a good thing in our country. And look at, look at the SharePoint Plus solution as well. I know a lot of the folks that we talked to when this first was announced were older attorneys that plan to retire within the next 10 years, and they don't need the robust features of Worldox. So SharePoint Plus kind of makes sense for them. Like they don't need all those robust features. So, but look at all of them, get a sense of the functionality of all three, get bids from all three, and start those discussions now. Talk about what kind of data you want to move over. What do you want to improve? What kind of things that did you hate about the limitations that you just lived with, that you're just maybe desensitized to? And when you see that feature set in these other products, I think it'll wake you up, and then you're ready to evaluate what to do. But listen,
and
it's
Paul,
going to take time to migrate. So
yeah,
you can't.
And you said
wait.
You said Worldox prem based, isn't it? That's not the same scenario. So if they still have
on-prem Worldox does not have an end of life date. So
is NetDocuments still going to support that prem based? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So at some point they will probably announce an end of life for the on-prem classic Worldox, GX4 licensing that you have, but they haven't done that yet. And they're going to give people plenty of time to move, and since they haven't announced that date yet, doesn't mean that you shouldn't plan. I think you should plan. I think you should, start looking at other products, but there's no urgency in doing that. There is urgency if you're using Worldox Cloud. Yep, bet.
All right. Doesn't look like there are any other questions. Thank you again, Sandra, Tony, for hosting us on this. We really appreciate it. And Paul, thank you for your time. That was great. Sandra, I'll follow up with you separately.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I actually have a question as well. Directed for Affinity for the training with NetDocuments, and we currently have NetDocuments. We recently switched over, and we are running into a few road bumps on really getting up and running and having these things adopt to NetDocs. And I kind of want to find out a little bit more about what sort of training you have available. If you're able to speak with me afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. We could talk to you one-on-one offline about that. We'll get your contact information, maybe put that in the chat, and we can reach out. But listen, I think you're on target. Like one of the best things we can do for change management is education and training. And so now it may be that your migration from Worldox to NetDocs, maybe there should have been some things that were done that weren't done. I don't know. But that's something that we can look at. But I generally speaking, training solves a lot of problems. And if you switched over and you didn't, get adequate training at that time of that switch, that's really painful. That could be really disruptive and painful. It could be a death nail in the application that you adopt. So you should jump on that, whether that's with us or somebody else. You're asking the right question, so let's explore that.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Really appreciate it, and look forward to working with you again.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Paul.
No problem.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
You too.